This is the AstrHori 120mm F2.8 Macro Lens for the owl mount. This is a full frame lens with a 2:1 reproduction, which means you can get insanely close to your subject. I've been shooting with this lens over the last few weeks, and while macro photography and videography are both quite challenging, I love it when you capture something beautiful. Let's take a look. All of this sample footage was shot handheld using my LUMIX S5IIX with my custom Natural Plus picture profile. Welcome back, folks. My name's Shane. Over the last 12 months, I've developed an affinity for full frame, affordable macro lenses, and this AstrHori lens ticks both of those boxes. This lens is priced at only $369 at the time of producing this video, and this lens is also full frame. This lens also has a 2:1 magnification, allowing you to get insanely close to your subject. For those unfamiliar with AstrHori, they're probably best known for some of the unique and niche lenses like their tilt lenses that I reviewed a few years ago, or their probe or fisheye lens line. It's great to also see them making a few standard macro lenses as well, all of which are reasonably priced. If you want to check out their website, I'll link it down in the description box below, and you can check out their entire range. Before we get into more photo and video samples, massive thanks to AstrHori for sending this out to the channel. Let's get into it. For those who haven't used the macro lens before, let me show you how insanely close you can get to a subject. This little green insect scaling my front window is really small. You can see just how small it is compared to my thumbnail. This photo is at the minimum focus with that 2:1 magnification. It's absolutely crazy. You can see the texture on the eyes, skin, or shell, or whatever that's called, and you can also see the details that were completely oblivious to the naked eye just looking at it. Shooting with this lens is super fun. This cactus is around the same size as my little finger, and punched in until the cactus fills the entire frame, and then in all the way with that 2:1 magnification, you can see all the fibers on the cactus. It's crazy. To achieve this minimum focus, you can see the entire group of elements shifting forward in the barrel. You can also see that this is 100% a manual focus lens without any contacts on the back or anything like that, so you'll be setting the aperture and focus manually. This lens can be quite challenging to focus at that 2:1 reproduction thanks to that 120mm focal length, but it allows you to nail a precise spot that you want in focus. These are all straight out of camera JPEGs with a little bit of editing in Final Cut Pro, mostly just boosting the saturation and contrast. The sharpness overall is excellent. I've done nothing to adjust the sharpness, and even at minimum focus, it's still doing a really great job. Let's talk about build quality and size. So this is a 930 gram lens, so there's no questions about it. It's quite heavy, but the great news is it's a full metal body construction, and overall the build quality is awesome. There's a 72mm filter thread on the front, metal knurling on a very fluid focus ring here, and a clicked aperture ring. Now, the clicks only work on the numbers listed, so F2.8, F4, 5.6, 8, 11, 16, and 22. But if you want to go, say, F10, it will work at F10, but it won't click into place on those. But the clicks feel fine, and I don't think you're going to knock it out of place accidentally. There's also some mounting points for an LED, so if you're doing something in close and you want to mount a little LED light to this, you can do that as well. Now let's talk about a few of the difficulties I encountered with this lens. So you can see from the focus distance metering that infinity and 1 meter are right next to each other. This means to focus anywhere from 1 meter to infinity requires precision, and it can be quite a challenge to focus in this range. For this reason alone, I would consider this to be used best at 1 meter or closer. Some people noted that also infinity focus isn't actually infinity focus. And they're correct. My copy focuses to about 30 meters and not all the way back to infinity. Given that most people are buying a macro lens for macro work, I don't consider these trade-offs to be a deal breaker. AstrHori have obviously designed the focus system in here, or the manual focus system at least, to perform better for macro work, and I'm okay with this overall. A lot of people like to use macro lenses for portraits, but due to that tricky focusing just beyond 1 meter to infinity, I can't really recommend it for that particular scenario. I would choose something else. Let's talk optical quality. So while I was able to capture some really beautiful video and photos using this AstrHori lens, it definitely lacks contrast compared with other macro lenses that I've recently tested. This can of course be added back in post-production, so it's no big deal. The great news is that optically, this is solid. I didn't notice too much in terms of lens flaring or high levels of chromatic aberration. I tried to force the chromatic aberration a few times in the studio, and it looked quite clean to my eye. The 120mm focal length paired with the fast F2.8 aperture allows for crazy levels of background blur. So much so that shooting an F2.8 was near impossible to focus on anything in my video tests. I shot most of the video samples you've seen at f11 or f16, and the background blur is still very evident. The bokeh quality though is also very nice. You get a smooth background blur, which really surprised me again, given the price of this lens. I love the fact that irrespective of the aperture, there's none of that super busy background or bokeh. This makes it a lot easier to keep focus on your subject without the background being too busy. And when it comes to photography, if you want more in focus, your only option is, of course, the photo stack. Now, if you want to work like that, where you move the focus point, take a whole bunch of photos, compile them in post-production or in your favorite photo editor, you can absolutely do that. But today's video, I just want to show you what kind of results I could get shooting straight out of camera with my S5IIX. All right, let's wrap this up. So overall, this is a very impressive lens for the price. And if you're a dedicated macro photographer or looking for your first macro lens, it's definitely worth checking out. If you're a handheld shooter though, working with insects, bees, or plants, you might find a shorter focal length a hair easier to work with. But once you get a feel for this though, you can definitely make it work. If you own an S5 Mark II or X, it's a really great pairing, and thanks to the bigger grip and handling of this particular camera, it's really well suited. Now, I tried it on my S9, and the lens is just far too big for this tiny camera body. So just keep that in mind if you're thinking about pairing this lens with the S9. Overall, this lens has been a whole lot of fun. If you want to check it out, I'll link it down below, and a massive thanks to AstrHori for sending this out. Thank you for watching. If you want to check out more of my videos, I'll link to this one on screen. Catch you soon. See ya.